Assalamu alaikum. Today we'll be discussing a very interesting topic which is called as contour plowing. To understand this concept better, let us look at the definitions first. What is a contour? Contour is basically lines which are drawn to join points of equal or consistent elevation. And when such a line is drawn, that line is called as a contour line. And what is ploughing? Ploughing is basically tilling or preparing or turning up of the land before the seeds are sown, right? So, contour plowing is a kind of a technique which is practiced on gentle hill slopes. And here in this practice, the crops are planted along the contours. To understand this better, let us look at this diagram. Here, supposing if this is a hill slope, so the crops are planted along the contours, and this is the contour line which is marked. How is it marked? It is marked with the help of a frame, which is called as an A frame. It is an instrument which is placed on different points here to identify the equal points of elevation. Then those equal points of elevations are connected, and then the crops are planted across or along that contour line. Okay, now you have to understand that in contour farming, there are two things: ridges and furrows. A ridge is a raised platform where the crops are cultivated, and furrows are basically shallow depressions between the ridges or immediately after each ridge. Now, what is a furrow? Furrow basically allows the water, the rainwater which is running down the hill slope, to sit in and infiltrate into the soil. Okay, so it is minimizing the loss of the rainwater, which otherwise would have cascaded down speedily along the hill slope, right? Now, this thing or this practice, this kind of farming practice is done in areas where there's abundant amount of rainfall and where the slope gradient is between 2% to 10%. It is usually not practiced on steep slopes, right? So it is done on gentle slopes. Okay, and here the crops are planted perpendicular to the slope. Okay, that's it. So the crops are planted on gentle hill slopes. We looked at all these points. They are planted along the contours and they are planted perpendicular to the slope. And the instrument which is used as is an A-frame. Now let us see as to why is this a practice, and gaining importance, because it helps in conserving the rainwater. Like we discussed about the furrows, it is allowing for the rainwater to sit in and not rapidly flow along the slope of the hill. So it's conserving the rainwater. It is reducing the soil losses from surface erosion. Obviously, when the rainwater is running down, it will also carry the soil along with it. So if it's not running off speedily, and it's gradually cascading down, so it's also minimizing the loss of soil from the surface. It is increasing the crop yields because now the crops have an ideal situation or an ideal conditions to grow. And it reduces the fertilizer loss because whenever the fertilizer and power and time as well, because when you apply the fertilizer and if it rapidly gets washed off because of the surface runoff, then that amount of fertilizer is actually lost. But if that fertilizer sits in the soil properly, it is allowed to do its work, and it's not run off along with the rainwater, it's not carried away with the rainwater, and then in that way you will be able to reduce the fertilizer loss. The losses due to heavy rains can also be minimized because now there are crops on the soil, on the surface of the slopes of the hills, and these crops can hold the land intact, and then the loss of the heavy caused due to heavy rains can be minimized in that way. Now, sometimes, this contour farming is practiced along with strip cropping and terracing. Strip cropping is basically alternating the crops, according to the seasons. And in that way, one crop is grown on one ridge, and then when the season, ends, then the next crop can be grown on the other ridge. Okay, then terracing is basically cutting steps on the steep hills. This we'll be discussing later on. Okay, now to just make you understand in that in sometimes in some conditions when this kind of farming is done on steeper hill slopes or where there are chances of erosion, soil erosion, then barriers are also constructed. Barriers are constructed along the contour lines. Where the crops ends. This is the crop area. This is the area where the crops are planted. So a barrier can be constructed over here. Now, what is a barrier? The barrier can be in the form of a mound. A mound means, a raised land of mud. Yeah, is placed. so that the water will will be obstructed from flowing down. And it could also be, this barrier could also be in the form of grass, it could be in the form of hedgerows, or mulch is dead leaves, straw, or twigs. And sometimes stones are also paved along the contour lines. Those If the stones are placed or pebbles are placed, now that is called as contour bunding. Okay, so this was all about contour farming. I hope I have cleared all the concepts. Still, if you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comments section down below.